we just had our first trio finals of the season. We had some massive performances from names like Peterbot and Veno, to no one's surprise, but we also had a really big underperformance from Mongrel and Mr. Savage, coming in dead last on EU. But I want to talk about why this happened and what I think it means for Mongrel and Savage going forward. We also had a bug that ruined tournaments for the last few days. I want to explain why it happened and hopefully that it won't be happening anymore. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Let's kick off with the big news first for EU. Mr. Savage, Mongrel, and Panzer coming in dead last in the first FNCS finals. So what happened? What went wrong? Do I think Panzer's going to get dropped? Are Mr. Savage and Mongrel going to split? No. If you watch this tournament, if you watch my YouTube channels or my streams, you know I have never predicted a team to go into a tournament and do worse than this tournament. I knew both Mr. Savage and Huddy were both going to have terrible tournaments, not because they're not good teams, not because I hate Huddy, the team contesting them, but because this drop spot situation is possibly the worst I've ever seen in comp Fortnite, and I'm not just saying that. Let me break down exactly how their off-spawn situation goes. Mr. Savage and Huddy's team both drop at the Bird. It's a 50-50 to see who can get control of the middle slurp truck and the east building. The building on the east side has the most amount of loot. Now, I will say Huddy's team did better at dropping. They did actually get this drop spot under control a lot faster than Mr. Savage and Mongrel. I don't think Savage played the drop as well as they could have. But despite this, Huddy's team still went on to only get 23rd, which I still think was a miraculous performance. It doesn't matter which one of the two teams dropping at the Bird wins the spawn fight, they end up going down to one of two other teams pushing them every single game. To make this spawn fight even worse, what Misha's team is doing most often is they're landing on the loot that's on the south of the hill of Bird. So Misha's team lands up here on these chests, on these weapons. They then get whatever long-range weapon they can, and they just sit there taking free shots in at the Bird, trying to pick off damage and elims on Mr. Savage. Then if somehow, let's say miraculously somehow, Mr. Savage or Huddy's team survives all that damage from Misha, manages to instantly wipe the other trio, they are instantly being pushed by Teeny, Chicho, and Chap, and then going down to them anyway. The only time we had Huddy or Savage's team have a decent game was at the end of the tournament. Huddy's team took down Mr. Savage really early in the last game. They went on to somehow pull off a 4 elim 5th, and that was pretty much the only good team either good game either team had in the entire tournament. Mr. Savage, Mongrel, and Panzer did try another drop spot. They tried to drop on the mountains on the far east side of the map. It didn't really go the best for them. Panzer went down early. They scrambled around the map trying to get loot before deciding to go back to the Bird. So all I'm trying to say is I don't think you should take this last place as they're washed. They're terrible. They're the worst team in the world. It's just how bad this spawn fight is at the Bird. And as long as they keep going the Bird and they get contested, I don't see this changing. There are rumors that Teeny might be switching drops from Night Shift Forest, which could help a little bit. Having another team drop at Night Shift Forest who isn't as good at fighting as Teeny's team or isn't as aggressive could make things a little bit better, but I guarantee any good team that drops there is just going to key Bird anyway because it's such free points. So where does that leave us? Obviously, I think Mr. Savage or Huddy's teams have to leave this drop. I've been saying for weeks now, Mr. Savage's best chance of doing well this season is going the Bird and hoping that any team knows that if they drop there, they're going to grief themselves like I just described, so they don't want to. Unfortunately, Mr. Savage's team has had to face the reality that even with that being the situation, teams might still just want to contest them. Huddy is a team player who went to Globals. He went to Globals recently. He just came off the back of winning DreamHack Sweden with Mixon. He's a good player. They're a good team. I have no idea why they thought this spawn fight was going to be good, but I guess they're just guessing that Mr. Savage will leave first. I don't know whether Mr. Savage, Mongrel, or Panzer are going to leave, but I did want to kind of give some more context to the spawn fight so you guys realize how bad of a situation this is. I think you could take almost any team in the world, put them in this spawn fight, and they're still going to have a terrible tournament. I don't think Peterbot's team could walk out of this spawn fight in a top 15 situation. I'm just saying it. Obviously, if Peter's team was dropping here, they wouldn't be contested because they just claim whatever drop they want on the map. But you get what I'm saying. It doesn't matter how good the player is. When your off-spawn situation is just so messy, it's really hard to work with. There is maybe a world where Mr. Savage's team could like claim the mountain to the south and try and third party in. Maybe they land at kind of like the dock area to the west. They could try and come up with some, some ways to play this spawn fight a little bit differently. But either way, it's looking like a rough season for Mr. Savage if they stick to the Bird. Just to defend my point a little bit more, if you look over at NA, Aoxy's team and Fredbot's team who are having the spawn fight at the Bird, and their spawn fight's even better because the team that's to the south of them at Shogun is actually contested, so they can't just sit on the hill. Even with them not getting pushed by one of the two teams that Savage is only getting pushed by Night Shift, they still managed to come in 30th and 17th overall, and Fredbot's team coming in 17th is because they got one good game, a 6 elim 5th. Other than that, they all done it out pretty much every single other game because of how bad this spawn fight is. In case you guys don't believe me, I am massive Mr. Savage and Mongrel fans. I'm not trying to just make excuses for them. It's just a really rough situation. Now talking about a spawn fight that goes the complete other way, Vico, Veno, and Flixie winning on EU with 322 points, playing 6 matches and almost winning 3 of them. They only made it off spawn 3 times, but in those 3 games, they went on to get a 17 elim win, a 15 elim win, and an 11 elim second. It's a perfect example of the way another spawn fight can go, that yes, you're in a spawn fight. Yes, it's really hard to do well when you're contested, but at least when you do well and you win the drop fight, you still go on to be able to have a good game. It's one of those POIs they're dropping right now, which is the Mossy, where is this? Magic Mosses. Magic Mosses, at least when you're contested, as long as you win the spawn fight, you can get the loot you need to go on and have a pop-off performance, so it's worth contesting. It feels like there's a bit more of a reward compared to the bird, where it just feels like you're doomed even if you win the spawn fight. Again, Vico, Venom, and Flixie, not to take away from them, winning the tournament with only 3 matches played essentially is insane, and I do want to give some credit to Snazy's team here. The Frenchies managed to take down Vico, Venom, and Flixie 3 games. There was a bit of help from third parties. Magic Mosses isn't completely immune to third party. They are still teams that push in and play aggressive. It's a really solid drop, especially with how strong the water boon is, and people realizing how strong these sprites can be. Having 3 guaranteed shrines at Magic Mosses, as well as the cave underneath with a bunch of loot, it is honestly, in my opinion, a top 2 uncontested drop, up there with brutal boxcars, which is why Vico's team wants it so badly. So all credit to them winning a cash cup with only 3 matches played. Basically, we had the polls in second, Seti, Hari, and Cammy. I love seeing Seti and Cammy back on top of the leaderboards on 275 points. They had a chance to win the whole thing, but unfortunately their last game was their worst game, a 3 elim 17th. Then we had Marius in the top 3. I love seeing Marius do well. Marius historically has been one of the most hyped up fighters in the world. He is a phenomenal player, but traditionally in metas where there's a lot of surge tagging, surge bases, and assault rifles of the meta, Marius hasn't done as well. He's done really well in seasons where it's all about close range fighting, but he has now picked up his skills and he is now a surge player. A 3rd place is awesome alongside Sanguild and Lunex. Then we had Swizzy, Queasy, and Mustache, the new trio on the block in EU, in 4th place overall. This is also including game 2 when Queasy disconnected and they went down in 23rd, so they didn't DC. They could have had an even better performance. And then to round out the top 5, we had Rax, Predage, and Rating on 232. I did want to shout out the other Danish trio. We had Sky Refsguard and Scroll in 6th, Chap, Chicho, and Tini, who I was just talking about from third partying Savage, used that to get 7th. We had Cringe's team in 8th, Ilusha in 9th, and then I dropped Chulex and Taste and clutching up a 9 elim win in their last game to secure a top 10 despite only having 5 matches played. Moving on over to NA, a huge surprise performance here, a team I've never talked about winning a tournament on NA. We have Peterbot alongside Cold and Ritual closing out the first FNCS Divisional 1 finals on 534 points. They played 6 matches and they won 3 of them with a 2nd place. 9 elim win, 8 elim 7th, 8 elim 2nd, 12 elim win, 12 elim 2nd, 17 elim win. An absolutely disgusting performance out of Brutal Boxcars. I've talked a lot about this team's drop spot. Brutal Boxcars is, in my opinion, the best or top 2 best drops on the entire map while uncontested. It is absolutely griefed when it is contested because you lose priority of the train. The train starts every game just before Brutal Boxcars, if you guys don't know. The first team to capture the train not only gets max metal, a mythic assault rifle, they also get a full inventory of meds, and that is what Peterbot's team gets every single game. If they get contested, however, it messes up the timing, and usually Brutal Boxcars just sails on over to Seaport. So we'll see whether they can hold it down uncontested. If any team in the world is going to keep this drop uncontested, it is going to be Peterbot. They played phenomenal throughout the whole tournament. It is worth mentioning they did not go for height a single time. I think in game 6 they claimed it a little bit towards the end because they knew they'd won. They were just W king, but in the first 5 games they did not go on height until the last 3v3 a single time. They know that in Void only mass meta, high ground is way too chaotic, it's way too easy to be chopped, it's way too easy to take. They play low and mid the whole way and they're doing it to perfection, really showing Peterbot's versatility as a player. He's not just a take height kind of player, he can play every single layer. I do want to give a shout out to Acorn, Ages, and Kanata, who managed to come in 2nd place on 360. 360 doesn't sound that good when you're comparing it to 534, but it was only their last game with a 4 elim 16th. But outside of that, they got a third, 5th, and 4th. So really good consistency from Kanada's team. Batman, Booger, Mason, Yomzo, pretty much on the podium for almost every NA trio tournament we watch right now. Truly the most underrated trio in NA. Hopefully now people are starting to pay attention and talk about them. They are looking extremely solid. Then we had Shadow, Curve, and Tyler, a very underrated team in 4th place. Reet, Booger, and Threats managed to take 5th place in the end, and then Muzz, Clicks, and Rise just missing out on the top 5 in 6th place. They did have a bit of an unfortunate tournament. They ran into a team that I would consider very underrated aimers. Really good aim with not a lot of events played. Unfortunately, with all the issues going on the last few days with tournaments being cancelled and bugs, we did have to run Opens and Finals on the same day today for NA, which meant that any team that qualified from Opens, I guess Epic staff just didn't have time to vet all the players, and that's why they're now splitting up the tournaments. In a normal schedule, there is always an entire day break between Opens and Finals for prize money tournaments. I'm guessing because Epic plans to be more on top of the leaderboard and getting rid of teams that are a little bit suspicious. Sadly, because of the bugs, if you guys missed it, a whole bunch of tournaments didn't run, and they had to run back-to-back today. The same thing is happening in solos, which is happening today. As of you guys watching this video, we have Opens and Finals for almost every region of solos today. We'll see whether that plays an effect. Muzz, Clicks, and Rise did have an unfortunate run with the team dropping near them, so they were getting tagged a lot and fought a lot by a team that was a little bit suspicious. We did have Dash, Bryce, and Braze coming in 7th overall, Noxy, Cooper, and Sphinx, and then a team that we may not have seen on the leaderboard as much as we would like recently, Bucky, Ocus, and Craze, getting an 8 elim 2nd and a 14 elim win. Bucky is currently locked into a very brutal spawn fight right now. Visuals over at the dam, but basically if Bucky's team walks off spawn healthy, they walk away with a 2nd and a win. They played phenomenally well as a trio, very aggressive as you'd expect from Bucky, a 14 elim win. But right now, I don't think we expect to see Bucky on top of the leaderboards, not because their team's not good enough. They're showing they're playing really well, but I think Bucky's priority right now is to lock down the dam, lock down the spawn fight, play to make visuals leave, and then we could see the return of Bucky, Ocus, and now alongside Craze, who I've been saying for a while now, I think is one of the most underrated players in the world right now. We also have Rapid, Poyo, and Bolts rounding out the top 10. The Yomzo in 10th is a fakey Yomzo. Rapid, Poyo, and Bolts had a very interesting tournament. I expected a lot better. They were uncontested. They didn't do bad. 11th place is not terrible. It's just not particularly good by their standards. So they brought it back at the very end with an 8 elim 9th. They got a 10 elim 6th. They just seem to go around go down a lot just outside top 10. I'm not really sure what happened there though. I really hope whatever bug has been affecting the tournaments doesn't ruin solos today. We do have Opens and Finals on all of the regions. It's going to be an absolute banger. If you want to watch all of it, swing by my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Aussie Antics, or keep an eye on my YouTube channels. I'll probably have a main channel video recapping day 1 solos and also a react video if we get any pop-off games, because I am so excited for solos to be back.